Good morning. It is Tuesday, October 24th at just before 6 a.m. My name is Larry Cedar, and I'm back with you for another session on scanning. Spelled Sqanning. It references scanning as in scanning the body, in this case for muscular tension. I use a Q just to distinguish it from other forms of scanning. We're going to spend the next half hour doing what I call expanding. In life, and this is as described by a man named Thaddeus Golis in the book The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, everything in the universe is based on two basic functions: contraction, squeeze your hands together, and expansion, release. We vacillate between those two states. We can't do both at the same time, so we, in a sense, vibrate like waves between those two states. We spend the majority of our day contracting. Contraction is the bringing together of thoughts, materials, ideas, intentions, skills, effort to achieve a certain goal. Expansion is letting go, doing nothing, being open, empty, non-judgmental, relaxed, release, permeable. That's expansion. So we vacillate between those two states. My theory, and I think about this a lot, is that we human beings tend to gravitate towards contraction as a means to solve our problems, to achieve our goals. That's natural, that's life. What happens is we become overly contracted. And if you were to take a mass of material and start to contract it and contract it and contract it, soon it would become a hard, impermeable rock and then eventually implode upon itself. So contraction can be, if extended too far, self-destructive. What we are doing in life these days, if you're reading the news, if you're going on social networks, is a lot of contracting. We're theorizing, we're positing ideas, we're arguing, we're debating, we're taking up arms, we're trying to destroy those ideas, thoughts, and people who disagree with our thoughts, ideas. So there's a lot of contraction going on. If you were to reference the world situation in that regard, you might then begin to understand that what's necessary now is not more contraction, more ideas, more arguing, more fighting, but the opposite. Letting go, emptying your mind, relaxing your body, coming to a place of emptiness, openness, freedom, clarity. As Thaddeus Golis might say, love. Love is the ultimate expansion because it allows you to merge with everything else in the universe. It's the ultimate permeability. You're completely open. Not to say that that's a solution, but it is something that brings us into balance. When you're out of balance, you're overly contracted. When you begin to bring expansion into your life, you open up and bring yourself back to center or balanced. When you're out of balance, out of kilter, is when you feel bad. So that's all we're doing in these sessions, is working to expand using the muscles, using our physical being to guide us into a more expanded state. Scanning is, by definition, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm through, I might add, expansion. So that's all we're doing. So that's all we're going to do. My theory is that that has a very important place in the world, as equally important as contraction. Contraction is the way we get things done. Expansion is the way we let things be. So let's start. We start with the basic preliminary steps of scanning: deep breaths, stillness, and silence. A deep breath is the most fundamental, simple, basic way to begin expansion. If you want to move the dial from a contracted to an expanded state, you must start somewhere. The smallest amount of expansion is a movement away from contraction. A deep breath is expansive by nature. You've already begun to expand. So we start with deep breaths, followed by stillness and silence. Stillness being the opposite of action. When we're contracting, we're doing. We stop. Silence being the absence of words, thoughts, ideas, sound, noise. We are silent. When you are completely expanded, there is nothing. So these are the preliminary steps. So we start with 3 deep breaths, followed by 15 seconds of absolute stillness and silence, and then we will take it further. 3 deep breaths. Here we go. 15 seconds. Absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. Now, if you're anything like me, this moment of stillness and silence, these deep breaths, maybe the first time in the past 24 hours when you've actually done intentionally nothing. That's how seductive contraction is. When the social media was invented, they tapped into a fundamental need on the part of humans to contract in order to feel better, to feel more secure. It gave us something to do, something to look at, something to touch, swipe, scroll, something to constantly do to make us feel theoretically better. But as a form of contraction, because you're concentrating, you're focusing on that social media, you're tweeting, you're posting, you're liking, you are in fact becoming more contracted. So when you put down the phone, when you take a few deep breaths, when you sit in stillness and silence, you have in effect detached yourself from that contracted process. And as I say, it is so seductive. This may be the first time in the past 24 hours when you've actually done that. I always say that the hardest part about scanning is starting, because it means letting go. So we've begun. So let's continue. Now we're going to do 5 deep breaths. We're going to expand even further, followed by a longer period of stillness and silence, 30 seconds of stillness and silence. Again, we're moving the dial. We've started gradually, and we're going to continue to incrementally move towards an expanded state. 5 deep breaths. Here we go. Deepest breath yet. 30 seconds, absolute stillness, silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. And take a moment to just register how you may feel different as a result of that continued expansion. Perhaps more still, perhaps more quiet. Perhaps your mind is clearer. Perhaps you're more conscious of the room, the sounds outside your house or apartment, the feeling of your heart beating. You become more conscious. When you are contracted, you've squeezed out consciousness because you've created ideas and thoughts by which you are trying to navigate your life. They fill up your consciousness. When they leave you, you are left just with yourself. You're more self-aware. So that's the process of expansion. And again, what I'm trying to emphasize is that an expanded state is of equal value to a contracted state. We must continue to contract in life. We must continue to pursue, to attempt, to write, to think, to build. That's the stuff of life. But what I've learned through scanning is that of equal value is the opposite: doing nothing, emptiness, stillness, silence, awareness, permeability, acceptance, openness. Equal value. We don't want to have one or the other. We want both. That gives us a centered, balanced life. Let's continue. This time we're going to do 7 deep breaths, followed by absolute stillness and silence. And again, when I say absolute stillness and silence, the value in that is that we rarely, in any time during the day, sit in absolute stillness and silence. So it sends a very clear message. We're now moving ourselves into a completely different state, different from anything we've done up to this point. And it sends a signal to your body that we have begun to expand. 7 deep breaths followed by a full minute, 60 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. Here we go. Last one. 60 seconds absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. Many people say that when they sit in stillness and silence, their mind races. They can't stop thinking. They can't stop worrying. They can't detach themselves from their concerns or ambitions or goals or ideas. The deep breath helps that. I don't really understand exactly why, but the deep breaths have the effect of bringing you into an expanded state on a total body level. And that tends to clear the mind, because the mind, like a muscle, when it starts to relax, lets go, and those thoughts begin to float away. So that will help. I want to mention now, before we go into what I call the nuts and bolts of scanning, which is the, as I mentioned, incremental release of muscular tension, that scanning is not trying to figure out how to say this. Not a permanent solution to anxiety, fears, concerns, tension. Those will always exist. Those will always be. I am the same neurotic, worrying, tense, hyperactive person I was when I started scanning some 10 years ago. What's different is I now am much better at managing myself and my personality. I still obsessively think, I still obsessively worry, I still have trouble sleeping, I still get anxious and concerned, I still make lots of bad decisions, rash decisions, all of that. But what I understand now is that those are a natural part of my contracted state. What scanning has allowed me to do is to ever go too far off the deep end. It has allowed me to manage my consciousness. I now have a tool that will bring me into balance at those times when I am overly contracted. I can expand and bring myself into balance. This will be a lifetime pursuit. I will never perfect this. I will never completely change my basic nature, but I will have learned how to manage my basic nature. And that's what scanning, that's what the appeal that scanning holds for me. And that's why I'm so obsessed with practicing it and teaching it. Because I think what it does is it gives you a tool that allows you to more successfully and happily and joyfully and clearly navigate your life. So I wanted to mention that. So now we go into the nuts and bolts of the technique. Again, scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. So all we're doing is this. Squeeze your hands together. That's contraction. See what that feels like? Now take a moment to really understand and feel. That's contraction. That's what we do 90% of our day. We do, we think, we grab, we hold. We manipulate, we grab, we build, we write, we think, we destroy. Contraction is effort. It's the bringing together of thoughts, materials, ideas, words, concepts, physical strength to achieve an agenda, a goal. So that's what that feels like, and that's good. Strength is good. The opposite of that is expansion. On my count, I want you to let go completely of all the tension in your hands. Let them drop to your sides and take a deep, deep breath. 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. That's expansion. Letting go. So what I discovered when I first began practicing this technique is that the muscles were a great key to expansion, because muscles can only do one of two things: contract or expand, let go. They can't do both at the same time. By releasing muscular tension, I effectively moved my physical being into a more expanded state. However incremental that release may be, once you've started to expand, you've stopped contracting. When I do this, 3, 2, 1, release, I've expanded. When I do this, I've expanded. And when I do this, and now we'll begin the incremental release of muscular tension, I've turned off the power to my muscles, which are naturally contracted. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're always holding as a means of instinctive self-defense. When I release that muscular tension, I have expanded. We're going to start with zone 1, the face. 3, 2, 1, and release. And I always start with the face because you can see it. You can look in the mirror and actually see it happen. 3, 2, 1, and release. And that feeling of release, that letting go, that turning off of the power to the muscles is the heart of scanning. And if you are willing to follow the lead that is your musculature, like a Sherpa climbing Mount Everest, the muscles will guide you into a more expanded state. And what you do when you practice scanning is you become more efficient, more effective at it. You begin to have a consciousness of your own ability to release muscular tension so that when you choose to, you can begin this expansive process. We all crave expansion. We know we need it. We all know when we are overly contracted, we can feel it. The simplest way to put it is we feel bad. We feel bad. Something's not right. And what do? We say, I need a drink. Why? Alcohol is a chemical expansion. It chemically forces your body to release. So you might say there's a benefit. Well, I'm expanding. The only problem is, as we all know, alcohol has certain side effects that are not so beneficial. If you would like to learn how to do this yourself without using an external process or chemical, an external force of expansion like alcohol or drugs, then you can learn to do this for yourself. And it's very empowering because you suddenly don't feel dependent on this external process. You have it within you. You have the ability at any time in your life when you feel bad to make yourself feel better by expanding. So, again, the face, 3, 2, 1, and release. There, you did it. Congratulations. You've expanded. You've begun scanning. Zone 2 is the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And if it helps to have a metaphor, it helps me sometimes. If you think of the face as a mask, which is made of wax, and on 3, 2, 1, you melt that wax and it just droops down the side of your face. Zone 2, the top of the head, sometimes it helps to think of an egg cracking on the top of your head. And when you say relax, 3, 2, 1, relax, you may feel that egg dripping down the side of your head. These are all letting go, slackening sensations. Zone 3 is the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And sometimes my metaphor for that is a rubber band, a large, wide rubber band stretched across the back of my head. And on my count, 3, 2, 1, release, I let go of that rubber band and it slackens and I can feel the tension come off the back of my head. So you can come up with your own, but again, it's a useful way. Visualization is a useful way to release muscular tension. Zone 4 is the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. Now, if you find it difficult to release muscular tension, that's understandable, natural, but continue to attempt. The mere thought of relaxation, the mere thought of letting go can cause a muscular release. Initially, you may feel, as I always do, a tremendous amount of resistance. The muscles want to hold their contracted position. It's a position of security. It's a guard. We are just flesh and bone. We can be easily injured. So the muscles tense up as a means of self-protection. If you've ever seen a kid say to another, go ahead, hit me in the stomach, go ahead, try. And they tense their stomach up and the guy punches them, and well, they can take that punch better if they're clenched, if they're held, if they're contracted. Contraction has its use and value. When you are protecting yourself, yes, it's important to be tight and prepared. But when you're trying to expand, it's important to do the opposite. Your body may feel otherwise. It may feel threatened by this idea of expansion or release. And I always say, if you feel frightened, if you feel resistant to this process, you've struck gold. You've come up against your own contraction. You've come up against the core, the very thing that you need to be working on, which is letting go. So I say incremental because just nudge it slightly. Let go of the smallest amount of tension in your neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. If you felt anything, you've succeeded. And even if you just thought about it, you've succeeded. Can't contract and expand at the same time. Once you take expansive steps, you've begun expanding and you've stopped contracting. The neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. Followed by the shoulders. Let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. And another. So this is a process. And it's one of the most difficult things I do in my day. And I've been doing this for years, for thousands of hours. I'm up against myself. And that's all we really are up against in life, truly, is ourselves. But if you can master yourself, if you can learn to negotiate and maneuver yourself into more healthful, more productive, more joyful places, you will have a balanced life. And you will be able to contract more effectively. You will have an approach to things which comes with a clearer mind, a relaxed body. Everything you do will be more effective. So again, I want to emphasize that expansion, what we're trying to learn here, is that expansion is of equal value. Doing nothing is of equal value to writing a book. Doing nothing is of equal value to building a skyscraper. Doing nothing is of equal value to posting on Facebook. Doing nothing is of equal value to doing something. And it seems hard to believe or accept, but that's the miracle of it. That's the beauty of it. It's like nothing I've ever, it was when I discovered it, like nothing I'd ever considered before, that doing the opposite of contraction, doing nothing, could have equal value. But if you begin to practice this technique, you will see that it does. When you begin to feel the benefits, you'll begin to understand that now you can go back to your contractions much more effectively. You will have achieved center or a balanced life. Zone 5, again, the shoulders, let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 6, the chest, stomach, front of the waist. Just let this whole chest, stomach area go, what I call the plate of armor, because it protects us emotionally. Just let it go. 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. If you experience emotion or feelings in this process, it's natural. Contraction tends to hold our feelings in. As you begin to expand, those feelings are released. Feelings never go anywhere. You can bury them as deep as you like for as long as you like. They'll always be there. When you begin to open up and expand, those feelings will find a way out. That may frighten you because you've been working so hard to bury them. You may not want to feel. You may associate feeling with all sorts of trauma or sadness, maybe even joy. But that may take you off balance, off kilter, but you must move through that, let that happen. A feeling released is a feeling that is harmless. So these are some of the things you may experience. Zone 7 is down the back, past the waist, into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. All we're doing is releasing muscular tension. At its heart, scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. And if you find yourself saying, this is too hard, it isn't working, I don't like this, I don't understand, nothing's happening, that voice is your contractive self, holding on desperately to its contractive state. So negotiate with yourself. Say, I understand you don't like this. I understand this doesn't feel good. I understand you feel frustrated. But give me 10 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. Let's just see what happens. I always say it's like negotiating with a child. A child who doesn't want to take a nap. I want to keep playing. I'm not tired. I'm not tired. I want to keep going. I want to keep going. I don't want to take a nap. I'm not tired. I don't want to go to sleep. I'm not tired. Why are you making me do this? I'm too antsy. You say to the child, what? I understand. Just lie down for a second. I'll tell you a story. Close your eyes. Relax. Next thing you know, the child is fast asleep because they were exhausted and they wanted to keep going. But what you knew as the adult, as the parent, was what they needed to do the opposite, which was sleep, relax. So we're parenting ourselves. We're saying, you may feel you want to do this, 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 and this, and continue to do this, 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 and that you may need to do this, this. You may need to worry about this and this, but I know better. I know that what you need now is to bring balance into your life by expanding, by letting go. So when you come up against that resistance, embrace it and move through it. Again, the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. And I'm going to say something now which might sound odd, but scanning can be a very lonely process. You are truly just with yourself. And that can be daunting, that can be frightening, that can be unpleasant, that could be scary, that can feel lonely. Because what you've done when you've detached from all the things you've attached to, be it social media or whatever projects you have going, is they've given you a sense of purpose, a sense of identity. When you let go of those things, you're just left with what? Yourself. At your most basic, without an identity, without titles, without praise, without accomplishments, without purpose, in a manner of speaking. There's just you. So we are hesitant to go to that place because it makes us feel alone and empty and possibly frightened. But what you find is that when you go to that place, you're actually embracing yourself. You're actually finding a way to enjoy who and what you are at your most basic. It in fact frees you from needing to be attached to all those external projects, forces, ideas. You feel self-satisfied, you feel sufficient, you feel at peace, because you have suddenly come to realize that just being, just breathing, just sitting and existing, listening to your heartbeat, is not only enough, but it's glorious. You're experiencing yourself at your most fundamental. You are at peace with yourself. So the fear of that can lead to resistance. Move through it incrementally. Zone 8 is down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. Let that tension in the feet go. And again, the feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. If you don't necessarily feel a large release, a big difference, that's natural. Resistance tends to mask feeling. So initially is when it's most hard, when it's most difficult to release muscular tension, because you're not really feeling yourself. You're not as in tune with yourself. When you are contracted, you've cut off feeling. You're not as self-aware. So you may not be able to feel that muscular release. Not only are you resistant to it, but you have masked the sensation. Again, just keep incrementally moving through until eventually, when you are expanded, your body will feel tremendously alive. You'll be conscious of the air on your feet, on your face. You'll be conscious of the musculature. You'll be very conscious of the state your muscles are in, contracted or expanded, and you'll be able to much more effectively release that tension. You're moving back into a place of self-awareness at its most fundamental, as a living, breathing, flesh and bone human being. A lot of our pursuits in life are an attempt to feel. We take drugs, we pursue, wild activities, skydiving, whatever interests you, because we want so desperately to feel. People say, I want that rush. I want that rush. I want to feel. Why? Because we can become so detached from ourselves, our very being, that we've stopped feeling, and that makes us feel what? Dead. So we pursue these things so that we can feel. And you can only imagine the number of things people do in life to feel. And those are all fine. But you can have that same experience simply by sitting in a chair, in a room, quietly, by yourself, breathing, and being. It's very, very simple. It doesn't have all the accoutrements of a lot of these activities. It may feel like you're not doing anything, but once you've come to that place, when you've expanded, when you feel yourself breathing, when you feel still and calm and detached from everything you've attached yourself to, when you stop feeling frantic or worried or concerned, when you've let go of all your physical tension, it is a high like nothing you will experience in your life, because you are truly in touch with yourself. Once you've experienced that, you're going to want to do it every day, as I do. So we're almost at a half an hour, so I'm just going to basically go through all the zones one more time. These sessions are instructional by nature. When you practice on your own, please take your time. But the whole idea is that you begin to become conscious of these different areas of your body. We're going to scan our body looking for pockets of muscular tension and release that tension incrementally, and then repeat. Cycle through. When you finish, start again. I will tell you, last night I was very concerned about a lot of things that are going on in the world, and I began to scan, and I cycled through, and I cycled through, and I will tell you that I did it for an hour. And after an hour, I finally began to relax. It took that long. That's how deeply contracted I was after a day of reading the news. But once I brought myself to that state and I felt calm, I felt 100 times more prepared to face the next day and decide what I need to do to contract an effective approach to life as well, to try to help myself and others. But I needed to come back into balance. Zone 1, the face, 3, 2, 1, release. Zone 2, the top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 3, the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 4, the neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Zone 5, the shoulders, let them drop, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 6, the chest, stomach, front of the waist, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 8, down the back, past the waist and into the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. And Zone 8, down the legs, across the knees and into the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. How far you go in scanning, how deeply expanded you become is up to you. It's up to you. There's no better, there's no worse, there's no amount that's the right amount or not enough. You decide how far you want to expand. You take that challenge, and scanning is a challenge. As I said, the hardest part is starting. But again, as I also said, once you've experienced what it is to be expanded, you're going to want to return. And the more you do it, the more you're going to want to do it. So I recommend you start. It's called Sqanning, Sqanning. As I define it, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. To bring our lives into balance. I will post this video on my Facebook page for a few hours. I also posted on the Sqanning Facebook page. If you need to find that page, go to Sqanning. There you'll see this video and previous videos. They're all basically the same, but I like to take a fresh approach to my session every day. Every day is going to be different. Every day is going to feel different. And that's what you can expect for yourself as well. As I said, this is not a practice that you will ever perfect. You will just get more efficient at it, better at it, and you will begin to enjoy it more, and you will begin to be more skilled, and you will want to return again and again and again, because you'll want to bring yourself and your very consciousness, your being, into balance, and to basically feel better. That's it. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.